There comes a moment in life when you realize that much of who you have been is shaped by expectations that were never truly your own. From an early age, you learn what is acceptable, what is admired, and what is rewarded. Slowly, without even noticing, you begin to adjust yourself to fit into these standards. You choose safety over truth, approval over authenticity, and comfort over desire. For a long time, this feels normal. It feels like responsibility, maturity, or simply the way life works. But then something shifts. It may arrive as exhaustion that sleep cannot fix, a quiet sadness that follows you even during success, or a sense that you are present in your life but not fully alive. You might have everything you were told to want, yet feel strangely disconnected from it. This feeling is not weakness or failure. It is your inner self asking to be heard after being ignored for too long. Choosing yourself does not begin with a dramatic declaration or a sudden transformation. It begins with honesty. An honest look at where you have been compromising your truth to keep the peace. An honest admission that you have been saying yes when your body and heart were begging for no. This realization can be uncomfortable because it forces you to confront the gap between who you are and who you have been pretending to be. At this stage, many people feel fear. Fear of disappointing others, fear of being judged, fear of losing love, security, or belonging. These fears are powerful because they are rooted in survival. As humans, we are wired to seek acceptance. But choosing yourself asks a deeper question. What is the cost of not choosing yourself? What happens to your spirit when you abandon your needs day after day? You begin to notice subtle signs that something is wrong. You feel drained after conversations that once felt harmless. You feel resistance toward commitments you used to accept without question. You may even feel irritated by people who expect access to you at all times. These are not signs that you are becoming selfish. They are signs that your inner boundaries are waking up. This first stage is not about action yet. It is about awareness, about observing your patterns without judgment, about recognizing that your exhaustion is not laziness and your dissatisfaction is not ingratitude. It is information. It is your inner self signaling that the life you are living no longer matches the person you are becoming. Choosing yourself begins the moment you stop dismissing these signals. When you allow yourself to admit, even silently, that something needs to change. This quiet acknowledgement is powerful. It marks the end of living on autopilot and the beginning of a more conscious, intentionally when you begin to choose yourself. One of the first emotions you are likely to encounter is guilt. This guilt can feel heavy and confusing, especially if you have spent much of your life being accommodating, reliable, and emotionally available to others. The moment you start setting boundaries, even small ones, your mind may accuse you of being selfish or unkind. This reaction is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is a sign that you are breaking old patterns. For many people, self-worth has been tied to usefulness. You were valued for what you provided, how much you gave, and how little trouble you caused. Choosing yourself disrupts this dynamic. When you stop overextending, some people may respond with surprise, disappointment, or even resistance. This can be painful, especially if you are used to being liked for your compliance. But discomfort does not mean you are harming others. It means you are no longer abandoning yourself to keep the peace as you continue honoring your needs. Something subtle begins to change. The guilt starts to lose its intensity. You realize that the world does not collapse when you say no. People adjust. Situations resolve themselves. And in many cases, you discover that the pressure you feared existed mostly in your own mind. This realization is freeing. It allows you to reclaim energy that was previously spent managing other people's expectations. With this reclaimed energy comes clarity. You begin to notice how different your body feels when you make choices that align with you. There is less tension, less resentment, less emotional fatigue. You may still care deeply about others, but your care no longer comes at the expense of your well-being. This shift creates a healthier balance between giving and receiving. Relationships often change during this phase. Some grow stronger because they are built on mutual respect rather than obligation. Others may fade because they were sustained by your self-sacrifice. This can be painful, but it is also revealing. It shows you which connections honor your boundaries and which relied on your silence. Letting go of misaligned relationships is not failure. It is part of realignment. Choosing yourself also teaches you to trust your internal signals. You start recognizing when something feels wrong before it becomes overwhelming. Instead of ignoring discomfort, you respond to it. This responsiveness builds self-respect, and self-respect quietly transforms how you move through the world. By choosing yourself, you are not becoming distant or cold, you are becoming honest. You are learning that true generosity comes from fullness, not depletion. Over time, this honesty creates a deeper sense of peace. You realize that you're allowed to take up space, to protect your energy, and to live in a way that feels sustainable. This is not selfishness. It is self-preservation, and it is necessary for a meaningful life. As you continue choosing yourself, a deeper transformation begins to take place within your sense of identity. For a long time, your choices may have been guided by external validation. You measured your worth through praise, approval, or the absence of criticism. When you stop living this way, it can feel unsettling at first, as if the familiar structure that once guided your decisions has disappeared. But in that emptiness, something more authentic begins to emerge. You start to hear your own inner voice more clearly. At first, it may sound uncertain because it has been ignored for so long. Yet with each decision you make in alignment with yourself, that voice grows stronger. You begin to trust your instincts, not because they are always perfect, but because they are honest. This trust reshapes how you see yourself. You are no longer someone who waits for permission. You become someone who listens inward before looking outward. This shift changes how you approach decisions. Choices that once felt overwhelming become simpler, not easier, but clearer. Instead of asking what will impress others or avoid conflict, you ask what feels right and sustainable. Even when the path is difficult, it feels meaningful because it is yours. You learn that peace does not come from avoiding challenges, but from facing them in alignment with your values. As your identity evolves, you may rediscover parts of yourself that were buried under responsibility and fear. Interests you once dismissed as impractical or unimportant begin to resurface. Curiosity returns. Creativity finds space again. These rediscoveries can feel both exciting and painful because they remind you of how much you once set aside. But they also show you what is possible when you allow yourself to live fully. Your relationship with success all changes. Instead of chasing milestones to prove your worth, you begin to define success on your own terms. It may look quieter, slower, or less impressive to others, but it feels deeply satisfying to you. You begin to value consistency over intensity, fulfillment over recognition, and growth over comparison. Challenges do not disappear in this phase. In fact, choosing yourself often requires facing discomfort directly. You may make mistakes, you may outgrow environments that once felt familiar. You may feel lonely at times as your inner world shifts, but even in these moments, there is a new sense of grounding. You know who you are becoming, even when the path feels uncertain. By choosing yourself, you are not rejecting the world. You are meeting it honestly. You show up without masks, without pretending to be smaller or louder than you are. This authenticity strengthens your resilience. You begin to understand that your worth is not something to be earned. It is something to be honored. And from this understanding, a more intentional, self-directed life takes shape. When you fully commit to choosing yourself, the most noticeable change is a deep and steady sense of peace. This peace does not mean life becomes perfect or free of problems. Instead, it comes from no longer being at war with yourself. You stop constantly questioning your worth, your choices, or your right to exist as you are. There is a quiet confidence that begins to settle in, built not on ego but on self-acceptance. You realize that you no longer need constant reassurance from others to feel secure. Approval becomes pleasant but not necessary. Criticism still exists, but it no longer defines you. This emotional independence is powerful. It allows you to remain grounded even when external circumstances are unstable. You learn to trust that you can handle discomfort without abandoning yourself in the process. Choosing yourself also changes how you show up in relationships. You become more present, not because you are giving more, but because you are giving honestly. You listen without resentment. You help without exhaustion. You love without losing yourself. Boundaries no longer feel like walls. They feel like clarity, and clarity creates deeper, more authentic connections. Your sense of confidence grows quietly over time. It is not loud or performative. It shows up in small, consistent ways, in how you speak, in how you make decisions, in how you walk away from what no longer aligns with you without needing to explain or justify yourself. You begin to respect your own time, energy, and emotional space. This self-respect becomes the foundation for everything else in your life. Life also begins to feel more meaningful. You are no longer chasing fulfillment through external achievements alone. Even simple moments carry weight because you are fully present for them. You experience joy more deeply, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer disconnected from yourself. Pain still exists, but it is met with compassion instead of self-judgment. Choosing yourself teaches you that fulfillment is not found in becoming someone else. It is found in returning to who you truly are. You understand that you are allowed to change, to grow, and to redefine yourself at different stages of life. There is freedom in this flexibility. You stop clinging to outdated versions of yourself just to maintain familiarity. In the end, choosing yourself is not a single decision. It is a daily practice, a commitment to honesty, self-respect, and inner alignment. It is the courage to live in truth even when it is uncomfortable. And over time, this commitment creates a life that feels whole, not because it meets every expectation, but because it reflects your essence. This is where real fulfillment begins.